The magnificent black stallion crashed to the arena floor, his terror-filled eyes locking with Emma's in a silent plea that everyone else missed. Without hesitation, she vaulted over the fence toward him, driven by a bone-deep certainty that if she didn't reach him now, his last breath would be taken in this dusty rodeo ring. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and comment where in the world you're watching from. Let's go. The Willow Creek Rodeo was the highlight of summer in Montana's eastern plains. People traveled from miles around to witness the spectacle, filling the wooden bleachers with their excited chatter and creating a patchwork of colors against the dusty arena. For most, it was entertainment, a celebration of tradition and skill. For others, like 17-year-old Emma Sawyer, it was something else entirely. Emma sat in the last row, her arms wrapped around her knees, watching the events with a mixture of fascination and unease. Unlike the cheering crowds, she saw beyond the glamour to the animals at the center of it all. She'd grown up around horses. Her grandfather had been a horse trainer before his hands became too gnarled with arthritis, and she understood their silent language better than most. The way their ears flicked when nervous, how their muscles tensed before a jump, the subtle shifts in their eyes that spoke volumes about their state of mind. Next up, ladies and gentlemen, we have Mason Reed riding Thunderstrike. The announcer's voice boomed through the speakers, electrifying the crowd with anticipation. Emma's attention focused on the massive gate at the far end of the arena. The announcer continued with exaggerated enthusiasm. Thunderstrike has never been successfully ridden for the full 8 seconds. Will today be the day? The crowd roared as the gate burst open. A magnificent black stallion exploded into the arena, his powerful body twisting and bucking with furious determination. On his back, Mason Reed, a rodeo star known for his tenacity, gripped the saddle with one hand while the other swung high in the air. His face was a mask of intense concentration as Thunderstrike unleashed his fury. There was something different about this horse, Emma noticed immediately. Beneath the wild bucking and snorting, she could see signs of distress that went beyond the normal response to being ridden. Thunderstrike's eyes showed whites all around, a sure sign of terror, not just resistance. His movements, though powerful, had a desperate quality that made her stomach tighten with concern. 5 seconds, the announcer shouted as the crowd counted along. Thunderstrike's bucking became more erratic. Emma leaned forward, her heart pounding. Something was wrong. The horse's breathing seemed labored, his movements increasingly desperate rather than calculated. 6 seconds. Emma stood up, though she wasn't sure what she could do. Nobody else seemed to notice the signs she was seeing, the way Thunderstrike's nostrils flared too widely, how his coordination was failing. These weren't the actions of a horse trying to throw a rider. These were the movements of an animal in serious physical distress. 7. The count never reached 8. Thunderstrike gave one final violent buck, then his front legs seemed to collapse beneath him. The massive animal crashed to the ground, throwing Mason clear but landing with a sickening thud that silenced the arena instantly. The stallion tried to rise but couldn't seem to coordinate his limbs. His sides heaved violently, foam beginning to fleck his dark coat. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain calm. The announcer's voice had lost its showmanship, replaced by professional concern. Our rodeo medical team is on their way. Emma didn't think. She vaulted over the low fence separating the stands from the arena and ran toward the fallen horse. Behind her, she could hear shouts, probably security telling her to stop, but she couldn't listen. Something pulled her forward with absolute certainty. "Miss, you need to step back." A man in a white shirt with a medical insignia tried to intercept her, but Emma dodged around him. "He's having a heart attack or something similar," she said with such conviction that the man hesitated. "I've seen it before in my grandfather's horses." Thunderstrike was still conscious, his eyes wild with fear and pain. His breathing came in desperate gasps, his magnificent body now helpless in the dirt. The rodeo staff and handlers stood around him, uncertain what to do. Mason Reed was already being escorted away, limping but seemingly uninjured. Emma approached slowly, speaking in a low, soft voice that few could hear over the murmuring crowd. "Hey there, big guy. It's okay. I'm here to help you." The horse's eye rolled toward her, showing a flash of white before focusing on her face. Emma continued her approach, never breaking eye contact, her hands visible and movements deliberate. When she reached his head, she knelt in the dirt beside him, ignoring the warnings from the staff. "This animal needs a vet immediately," she said firmly to the nearest official. "And some space. Everyone needs to back up." Perhaps it was her tone or the unusual situation, but people actually began to step back. Emma turned her attention fully to Thunderstrike, placing one hand gently on his neck, where she could feel his racing pulse. With her other hand, she stroked his forehead, continuing to speak softly. "I know you're scared. I know it hurts. But I'm right here with you, and I'm not going anywhere." Thunderstrike's breathing was still labored, but the wild panic in his eyes began to recede slightly. Emma shifted position, cradling his massive head in her lap, continuing to stroke and murmur reassurances. She didn't care about the dirt staining her jeans or the hundreds of eyes watching from the stands. In that moment, only the suffering animal before her mattered. The arena had gone eerily quiet. The announcer remained silent, and the crowd watched in a strange, collective hush as the teenage girl embraced the fallen champion. Even those who had come for the excitement of the rodeo couldn't help but be moved by the tableau of compassion playing out before them. "Where's the vet?" Emma called out, not taking her eyes off Thunderstrike. "He needs help now." "On her way," someone replied. 5 minutes out." 5 minutes could be too long. Emma could feel Thunderstrike's heartbeat. Too fast, too irregular. His breathing seemed slightly easier with her presence, but his body occasionally trembled with spasms that worried her deeply. "Do you have any medications for horses?" she asked. "Anything for pain or to calm him?" A rodeo staff member knelt nearby. "The vet keeps her supplies in that trailer," he pointed, "but we're not authorized." "Then find someone who is," Emma interrupted, her voice leaving no room for argument. "Or bring me the trailer keys. This horse is suffering." As if understanding her words, Thunderstrike made a feeble attempt to raise his head. Emma gently prevented the movement, whispering, "Stay still, big guy. Save your strength." The minutes passed with excruciating slowness. Emma remained focused entirely on Thunderstrike, her world narrowed to the connection between them. She spoke to him continuously, telling him about her grandfather's farm, about the creek that ran behind their property where horses could cool their hooves in summer, about the apple trees that produced fruit the horses loved to eat. She wasn't sure if her words mattered, but maintaining that gentle human contact seemed to be helping. When the veterinarian finally arrived, a brisk woman in her 40s carrying several bags of equipment, Emma didn't move from her position. "I'm Dr. Winters," the woman said, kneeling beside them. "Can you tell me what you've observed?" Emma described the symptoms she'd noticed both before and after the collapse with a precision that caused the vet to look at her with newfound respect. "You've worked with horses before," Dr. Winters stated rather than asked as she began her examination. "My grandfather was a trainer," Emma replied, still stroking Thunderstrike's neck. "I've been around them all my life." Dr. Winters nodded, focusing on her examination. After checking Thunderstrike's vital signs and performing several quick tests, she looked up grimly. "It's his heart, probably a condition that went undetected, exacerbated by the extreme exertion of bucking. We need to stabilize him before we can move him." Dr. Winters worked quickly, administering medications from her bag while instructing the rodeo staff to bring a horse ambulance around. Emma remained where she was, offering comfort to Thunderstrike, who seemed to draw strength from her presence. His breathing, though still labored, had become more regular under her gentle touch. "You're doing great," she whispered, her hand still stroking his powerful neck. "The medicine will help soon. Just stay with me." The vet glanced at Emma with approval. "Keep doing what you're doing. He's responding to you." The crowd remained unusually quiet, many people standing to get a better view of the unfolding drama. The announcer had wisely refrained from commentary, understanding that this was no longer entertainment but a life-or-death situation unfolding before thousands of witnesses. "What's going to happen to him?" Emma asked Dr. Winters quietly. The veterinarian's hands didn't pause in their work as she replied, "If we can stabilize him, we'll transport him to my clinic. He'll need extensive testing, possibly surgery." "And if you can't stabilize him?" Emma's voice wavered slightly. Dr. Winters met her eyes briefly, her expression softening. "Let's focus on what we can do right now." Emma understood what remained unsaid and renewed her efforts to keep Thunderstrike calm. The horse's eyes, though dulled with pain, remained fixed on her face, as if she were an anchor in a storm. She wondered about his life before today, who had trained him, whether he had been treated with kindness or merely seen as a commodity, a means to win prize money and glory. A commotion at the arena entrance drew her attention. A tall man in expensive boots and a black Stetson was arguing with security, his face flushed with anger. Even from a distance, Emma could read the entitlement in his stance, the way he jabbed his finger toward the fallen horse. "Who's that?" she asked one of the rodeo hands. "Blake Sutton," the young man replied, his expression uneasy. "He owns Thunderstrike." Blake Sutton finally pushed past security and strode toward them, his face a mask of controlled fury. Emma instinctively tightened her hold on Thunderstrike's head, feeling the horse tense beneath her touch. "What the hell is going on here?" Sutton demanded, addressing no one in particular. "That's a $250,000 animal lying in the dirt, and you've got some kid playing nurse?" Dr. Winters straightened, her professional demeanor firmly in place. "Mr. Sutton, I'm Dr. Winters, the attending veterinarian. Your horse has suffered a serious cardiac episode. We're stabilizing him for transport to my clinic." Sutton barely acknowledged her, his gaze fixed on Thunderstrike with an expression that made Emma's stomach turn. There was concern there, yes, but it was the concern of someone assessing damaged property, not a living being in pain. "Will he be able to perform again?" he asked bluntly. Dr. Winters' pause spoke volumes. "It's too early to make that determination. My focus right now is saving his life." Sutton's jaw tightened. "I expect to be kept fully informed. This animal represents a significant investment." "Of course," Dr. Winters replied, her tone neutral, but her eyes hard. Emma couldn't contain herself. "He's more than an investment," she said, her voice quiet but clear. "He's a living creature who's suffering." Sutton seemed to truly notice her for the first time, his eyes narrowing as they took in the sight of her cradling his horse's head. "And who exactly are you?" "My name is Emma Sawyer. I was in the audience when he collapsed." "Well, Emma Sawyer, I appreciate your concern, but this situation doesn't involve you. My staff will take over now." Emma didn't move. "He's calmer with me here. The vet said so." A flash of irritation crossed Sutton's face, but before he could respond, Dr. Winters intervened. "Mr. Sutton, Emma has been extremely helpful. Your horse is responding well to her presence, and I'd prefer not to disrupt that right now. We can discuss the details of his care once we've transported him to the clinic." Sutton looked like he wanted to argue, but seemed to recognize the futility of creating a scene in front of the still-watching crowd. With visible effort, he composed himself. "Fine, but I want regular updates, and I'll have my own specialists examine him as well." "That's your right as his owner," Dr. Winters acknowledged. "Now, if you'll excuse us, the transport is here." The horse ambulance, essentially a specially designed trailer with a hydraulic floor that could be lowered to ground level, had pulled up at the arena gate. A team of experienced handlers approached, ready to help move the massive animal. "This is the tricky part," Dr. Winters explained to Emma. "We need to get him onto the transport without causing further stress to his system." Emma nodded, her throat tight with worry. Thunderstrike seemed more alert now, the medications beginning to take effect, but he was still far from stable. Moving him presented significant risks. "I'll stay with him," she said firmly. Dr. Winters didn't argue. "Talk to him throughout the process. Keep him focused on you, not what's happening around him." The next 20 minutes were among the most intense of Emma's young life. Under Dr. Winters' expert direction, the team positioned a specialized sling beneath Thunderstrike's body. Emma remained at his head, speaking softly and continuously, her hands gentle but confident, as she guided his focus away from the frightening activity surrounding him. When they finally began to lift him, Thunderstrike panicked briefly, his eyes rolling and a weak neigh of distress escaping him. Emma immediately pressed her forehead against his, her voice dropping to an intimate whisper that only he could hear. "I know you're scared, but I promise I won't leave you. We're going to get through this together, just you and me. Focus on my voice, feel my touch. Nothing else matters right now." Remarkably, the horse calmed, his massive body relaxing enough for the team to continue their careful work. Inch by inch, they moved him onto the lowered floor of the transport. Emma moved alongside, never breaking contact, her legs cramping from the awkward position, but her determination unwavering. Once Thunderstrike was securely in the transport, Dr. Winters turned to Emma. "You've been extraordinary, but this is where your part ends. We'll take him from here." Emma shook her head. "I promised I wouldn't leave him." "This isn't a petting zoo, young lady," Sutton interjected, having followed them to the transport. "Dr. Winters has a job to do, and you need to go back to the stands where you belong." Emma stood her ground, looking directly at Dr. Winters rather than Sutton. "He trusts me. You said yourself he's responding to me. Please let me come with you." "Doctor?" Winters seemed to weigh her options, glancing between the determined girl and the agitated owner. Then she looked at Thunderstrike, who remained focused on Emma despite everything happening around him. "She comes," Dr. Winters decided firmly. "At least for the transport. He's still in critical condition, and anything that keeps him calm increases his chances." Sutton looked like he might object, but something, perhaps the watchful eyes of the crowd, or simply the realization that arguing would only delay his horse's treatment, made him concede with poor grace. "Fine, but once he's at the clinic, we do things my way." Emma didn't waste energy responding to him. She climbed carefully into the transport, positioning herself where she could maintain contact with Thunderstrike while staying out of the medical team's way. As the doors closed and the vehicle began to move, she felt a strange mixture of fear and resolve. She had no idea what would happen next, but she knew with absolute certainty that she was exactly where she needed to be. Through the small window of the transport, she caught a final glimpse of the arena, the crowds now standing and watching their departure. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the dirt where, just an hour ago, Thunderstrike had been a symbol of wild power and untamable spirit. Now his future hung in the balance, and somehow, improbably, Emma had become part of his story. The journey to Dr. Winters' clinic took 20 minutes that felt like hours. Emma remained beside Thunderstrike, speaking softly and maintaining physical contact as the horse ambulance navigated the country roads. Dr. Winters monitored his vital signs constantly, occasionally adjusting medication through the IV line she had established. "His heart rate is still elevated but more stable," the vet remarked, glancing at Emma with something like admiration. "Whatever you're doing, keep it up." Emma nodded, continuing her gentle monologue. She told Thunderstrike about her own horse back home, an elderly mare named Willow who had taught her to ride, and about her dreams of becoming a veterinarian someday. The massive stallion's eyes remained fixed on her face, his breathing synchronizing with hers in a rhythm that seemed almost deliberate. When they finally arrived at the clinic, a team was waiting for them. The transport's hydraulic floor made the transition into the treatment area smoother than Emma had feared. Thunderstrike was wheeled into a large examination room equipped with specialized equipment for horses. Dr. Winters immediately began issuing orders to her staff, her movements efficient and purposeful. Emma stayed close to Thunderstrike's head, becoming increasingly aware of her own disheveled appearance. Her jeans and t-shirt were covered in arena dirt, and her dark hair had escaped its ponytail to hang in tangles around her face. None of that mattered, though, as she focused entirely on keeping the injured horse calm. Blake Sutton arrived shortly after them, having followed in his luxury SUV. He strode into the clinic like he owned it, phone in hand, already making calls. "I want the best cardiac specialist in the state," he was saying to someone on the other end. "I don't care what it costs. This is Thunderstrike we're talking about." Dr. Winters looked up from her examination, her expression carefully neutral. "Mr. Sutton, I've already contacted Dr. Patel. He's the leading equine cardiologist in the region, and he's on his way from Denver." Sutton nodded curtly, ending his call. "Good. What's the situation?" "We're stabilizing him and preparing for a comprehensive cardiac workup. Once Dr. Patel arrives, we'll have a clearer picture of what we're dealing with." Emma watched this exchange silently, still stroking Thunderstrike's neck. The horse seemed more comfortable now, the immediate crisis having passed, but she could still sense tension in his powerful body. "And what's your preliminary assessment?" Sutton pressed, his tone making it clear he expected answers. Dr. Winters sighed. "Based on what I've seen, Thunderstrike has a congenital heart defect that went undetected. The extreme stress of rodeo performance likely pushed his heart beyond its capacity." "That's impossible," Sutton countered immediately. "He had a full veterinary workup before I purchased him, and twice yearly since then." "Some conditions can be difficult to detect without specialized testing," Dr. Winters explained, "especially if the animal appears otherwise healthy and performs well." "So what are you saying? That he's been a ticking time bomb all along?" "I'm saying we need more information before jumping to conclusions." Sutton's jaw tightened and he glanced at Thunderstrike with an expression that made Emma's heart sink. It wasn't concern for the animal's well-being she saw there, but calculation, cold assessment of damaged property. "And what are the chances he'll return to performance level?" he asked bluntly. Dr. Winters met his gaze steadily. "Mr. Sutton, right now our focus is saving his life. Questions about his future performance are premature." "I have a right to know what I'm dealing with here," Sutton insisted. "This animal represents a significant investment, and I need to make informed decisions." Emma couldn't stay silent any longer. "Is that all he is to you? An investment?" Sutton turned to her with barely concealed impatience. "Young lady, in the real world, these animals are valuable assets. I've put hundreds of thousands of dollars into Thunderstrike's training, care, and competition fees. His bloodline is impeccable, his winning record impressive. So yes, from a business perspective, he is an investment, a very significant one." "He's also a living creature," Emma countered, her voice quiet but firm. "One that's suffering right now. Which is why I'm ensuring he gets the best possible care," Sutton replied smoothly. "But that doesn't change the economic realities." Before Emma could respond, the clinic doors opened, and a distinguished-looking man in his 50s entered, carrying a medical bag. Dr. Winters immediately stepped forward. "Dr. Patel, thank you for coming so quickly." "Of course, Helen," he replied, already moving toward Thunderstrike. "Tell me what we're dealing with." As the two veterinarians conferred, Emma remained at Thunderstrike's side, trying to ignore Sutton's calculating presence. The horse seemed to sense the tension, his ears flicking nervously. Emma leaned closer, whispering reassurances, her hand steady against his neck. Dr. Patel's examination was thorough, utilizing portable ultrasound equipment to visualize Thunderstrike's heart. Emma watched anxiously as images appeared on the screen, meaningless to her untrained eye but clearly significant to the medical professionals. Finally, Dr. Patel straightened, his expression grave as he turned to address Sutton. "Mr. Sutton, your horse has a condition called hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, essentially an abnormal thickening of the heart muscle. It's restricting blood flow and putting enormous strain on his system, particularly during periods of exertion. Can it be treated?" Sutton asked immediately. "We can manage it with medication to reduce the workload on his heart. With proper care, he can live a comfortable life." "And competition? Can he return to the rodeo circuit?" Dr. Patel shook his head firmly. "Absolutely not. Any significant physical exertion could trigger another episode, potentially fatal next time. His competition days are over." The words landed like a physical blow. Emma felt Thunderstrike shift beneath her touch, as if he somehow understood the gravity of the moment. She stroked his neck gently, her throat tight with emotion. Sutton's face hardened. "I'd like a second opinion." "You're welcome to seek one," Dr. Patel replied evenly, "but I assure you any qualified specialist will tell you the same thing. This horse cannot safely compete again. Attempting to do so would be not only dangerous, but potentially illegal under animal welfare regulations." A tense silence filled the room. Emma watched Sutton's face, seeing the calculations happening behind his eyes, and suddenly feared what those calculations might mean for Thunderstrike. "What are his options as a breeding stallion?" Sutton finally asked. Dr. Patel considered this. "His condition has a genetic component, which makes breeding ethically questionable. You would be perpetuating a potentially dangerous trait." "So you're telling me he's worthless," Sutton said flatly. "I'm telling you he can no longer serve the purpose you purchased him for," Dr. Patel corrected. "His value as a living being remains unchanged." Sutton scoffed, turning away to pace the length of the examination room. Emma could almost see the frustration radiating from him as the financial implications sank in. When he finally spoke again, his voice was controlled, but cold. "What are the immediate next steps for treatment?" "We need to keep him here for monitoring and to begin medication therapy," Dr. Winters answered. "I'd recommend at least a week of observation to establish the right medication protocol and ensure he's responding well." "Fine. Do what you need to do. I'll be in touch tomorrow to discuss longer-term arrangements." Without another word or even a glance at Thunderstrike, Sutton strode from the clinic. A collective exhale seemed to pass through the room after his departure. Emma continued stroking Thunderstrike's neck, a knot of worry forming in her stomach. Something in Sutton's tone had left her deeply uneasy about what those longer-term arrangements might entail. "He's going to be okay for now, isn't he?" she asked, looking between the two veterinarians. "Doctor?" Winters nodded, her expression softening. "Yes, he's stable and we'll make sure he stays that way. But what happens when Mr. Sutton comes back tomorrow? If Thunderstrike can't race or breed?" The unspoken question hung in the air between them. Dr. Patel and Dr. Winters exchanged a look that confirmed Emma's fears. Thunderstrike's future was far from secure. As evening settled over the clinic, Emma remained with Thunderstrike while the veterinary staff prepared a stall for his overnight stay. Dr. Winters had graciously allowed her to stay, recognizing the unique bond that had formed between the girl and the injured stallion. Emma had called her parents, explaining the extraordinary circumstances and receiving reluctant permission to remain at the clinic a while longer. "You've gone above and beyond today," Dr. Winters said, bringing Emma a sandwich and a bottle of water from the staff room. Most people would have just watched from the stands. Emma accepted the food gratefully, realizing she hadn't eaten since breakfast. "I couldn't just do nothing. Not when I saw him suffering like that." Dr. Winters nodded, her experienced eyes assessing both the horse and the girl. "You have a gift, you know. The way you connected with him. That's something that can't be taught." "My grandfather always said some people just speak horse," Emma replied with a small smile. "He thought I had the knack for it." "Your grandfather was right." Dr. Winters checked Thunderstrike's IV line, adjusting the flow slightly. "I've been doing this for 20 years, and I still see things that surprise me. The way Thunderstrike responded to you today, that's rare." Emma continued stroking the horse's neck, feeling the steady rhythm of his breathing beneath her palm. "What's going to happen to him, Dr. Winters?" "Really?" The veterinarian sighed, setting down her clipboard. "I wish I could say for certain. The reality is, horses like Thunderstrike are valuable as long as they can perform or breed. Once that's no longer the case, Sutton's going to get rid of him, isn't he?" Emma's voice was barely audible. "I can't speak to Mr. Sutton's intentions," Dr. Winters replied carefully. "But I've been in this field long enough to know how these situations typically play out." Emma's throat tightened. "It's not fair. None of this is Thunderstrike's fault." "No, it's not," Dr. Winters agreed. "Unfortunately, fairness rarely factors into these decisions." They sat in silence for a moment, the only sounds the gentle beeping of monitoring equipment and Thunderstrike's occasional soft snort. Emma's mind raced, imagining the bleak possibilities that awaited the magnificent animal who had fought so hard to survive. "What if," she began hesitantly, "what if someone else wanted to take him?" Dr. Winters gave her a measuring look. "That would depend entirely on Mr. Sutton. If he chooses to sell or rehome Thunderstrike, that's his prerogative as the owner. And if he doesn't want to sell? If he decides Thunderstrike isn't worth keeping around?" The unspoken implication hung heavily between them. Dr. Winters' expression softened with compassion. "Emma, I understand your concern, but this is a complicated situation. Thunderstrike is extremely valuable, even with his condition. Mr. Sutton isn't likely to simply give him away. But if he can't race or breed, what value does he have to someone like Sutton?" Emma persisted. "That's the question, isn't it?" Dr. Winters conceded. "Listen, why don't you get some rest? We have a cot in the break room you're welcome to use. Tomorrow will bring its own challenges." Emma nodded reluctantly, giving Thunderstrike a final pat before following Dr. Winters to the small break room. Though exhausted, her mind was too full for sleep to come easily. Images from the day kept replaying. Thunderstrike's collapse, the panic in his eyes, the calculated coldness in Sutton's expression. Somewhere in the early hours of morning, she finally drifted into an uneasy slumber. She awoke to sunlight filtering through the blinds and the sounds of the clinic coming to life. Disoriented momentarily, Emma quickly remembered where she was and why. She splashed water on her face in the adjacent bathroom, trying to make herself presentable despite having slept in her clothes. When she returned to Thunderstrike's stall, she found him awake and more alert than the previous day. His ears pricked forward at her approach, and a soft nickering sound greeted her. "Good morning to you too," she said, smiling as she approached. "You're looking better." It was true. While still clearly weakened, Thunderstrike's eyes were brighter, his posture more relaxed. The medications seemed to be working, giving his overworked heart the support it needed. "He had a good night," said a young veterinary assistant who was checking the horse's vitals. "Dr. Winters said his numbers are improving." "That's wonderful," Emma replied, moving to Thunderstrike's head and stroking his forehead in the way he seemed to prefer. "You're a fighter, aren't you?" The morning progressed with a steady stream of staff checking on their high-profile patient. Emma remained a constant presence, stepping aside when necessary but always returning to offer comfort and companionship. She was helping the assistant groom Thunderstrike's coat when the clinic's front door opened with force. Blake Sutton had returned, and he wasn't alone. With him was another man, older, with silver hair and an expensive suit that seemed out of place in a veterinary clinic. "Where's Dr. Winters?" Sutton demanded of the receptionist. "I'll get her for you, Mr. Sutton," the young woman replied, quickly disappearing down the hallway. Emma stayed where she was, her hand resting protectively on Thunderstrike's neck. She noticed the horse's muscles tense beneath her touch, his ears flattening slightly at the sound of Sutton's voice. Dr. Winters emerged from her office, greeting both men professionally. "Mr. Sutton, good morning. I was just about to call you with an update." "This is Harrison Wells, my insurance adjuster," Sutton said without preamble. "He needs to verify Thunderstrike's condition for the claim I'm filing." "Of course," Dr. Winters replied. "I have all the diagnostic results and Dr. Patel's assessment ready for review." The insurance adjuster nodded, his expression giving nothing away. "And I'll need to see the animal as well." "He's right this way." Dr. Winters led them toward Thunderstrike's stall. Emma straightened as they approached, instinctively moving closer to the horse's head. Sutton barely acknowledged her presence, but the insurance adjuster's eyebrows rose slightly at the sight of a teenager in the stall. "Mr. Wells, this is Thunderstrike," Dr. Winters said. "As you can see, he's stable, but still under intensive care." The adjuster approached carefully, notebook in hand. "And you are?" he asked, looking at Emma. "Emma Sawyer," she replied. "I was at the rodeo when he collapsed." "Miss Sawyer has been instrumental in keeping Thunderstrike calm during treatment," Dr. Winters explained. "She has a remarkable way with him." Wells nodded, making a note. "The claim states that this animal has been diagnosed with hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, rendering him unfit for competition or breeding. Is that your professional assessment, Doctor?" "It is," Dr. Winters confirmed. Dr. Patel, who is the leading equine cardiologist in the region, concurs. Thunderstrike cannot safely return to competition. "And the prognosis for general health and longevity? With proper medication and care, he can live a comfortable life, though he'll need activity restrictions and ongoing monitoring." The adjuster continued his examination, occasionally making notes and asking specific questions about Thunderstrike's medical history and the events at the rodeo. Finally, he turned to Sutton. "Everything appears to be in order, Mr. Sutton. The insurance company will process your claim for loss of performance value. You should receive compensation within 30 days, assuming no complications arise." "Good," Sutton replied, his eyes never leaving Thunderstrike. "And what about disposal costs?" Emma's heart seemed to stop at the casual cruelty of the word. Disposal. As if Thunderstrike were a broken piece of equipment rather than a living, breathing creature who had given everything for his owner's profit. "Disposal?" she echoed, unable to contain herself. "He's not trash, Mr. Sutton. He's alive, and he's recovering." Sutton finally looked at her, his expression cold. "Miss Sawyer, while your concern is touching, this is a business matter between myself, my insurance company, and my veterinarian. Thunderstrike is my property, and decisions about his future are mine alone to make." Dr. Winters stepped forward, her professional demeanor masking the concern Emma could see in her eyes. "Mr. Sutton, perhaps we should continue this conversation in my office. Thunderstrike is still recovering and stress could impede his progress." "There's nothing more to discuss," Sutton replied dismissively. "The horse is insured for his performance value. Now that he can't perform, I'm filing a claim. It's straightforward business." "And after the claim is processed?" Dr. Winters asked carefully. "What are your plans for Thunderstrike's care?" Sutton's expression remained impassive. Once the insurance pays out, there's no financial sense in maintaining an animal that can't earn his keep. The most humane option is euthanasia. The word landed like a physical blow. Emma felt her knees weaken, her hand instinctively tightening on Thunderstrike's neck. The horse seemed to sense her distress, turning his massive head to nudge her gently. Euthanasia? Emma's voice cracked. But that's for animals who are suffering, who can't live a good life. Thunderstrike isn't suffering, he just needs medication and a quieter life. A quieter life costs money, Miss Sawyer, Sutton countered, his tone condescending. Daily medications, special feed, regular veterinary checkups. Who do you propose should pay for all that? There are other options, Dr. Winters interjected. Retirement facilities for performance horses, adoption programs. I've considered those, Sutton cut her off. The liability concerns are too great. If I sell or donate a horse with a known heart condition and something happens, I could be legally responsible. No, once the insurance claim is settled, the cleanest solution is to humanely end his life. Emma couldn't believe what she was hearing. Thunderstrike stood beside her, his dark eyes intelligent and trusting, unaware that his owner was discussing his death as casually as if planning a business dinner. How much? The words escaped before Emma fully formed the thought. Sutton looked at her with surprise. Excuse me? How much would it cost to buy him from you? Emma clarified, her heart pounding. After your insurance pays out, how much would you want for Thunderstrike? A short, disbelieving laugh escaped Sutton. Young lady, even with his condition, this horse is worth tens of thousands of dollars. This isn't like adopting a shelter dog. I understand that, Emma replied, standing straighter. I'm asking what your price would be. Sutton studied her for a moment, seeming to truly see her for the first time. You can't be serious. I've never been more serious about anything in my life. Dr. Winters placed a gentle hand on Emma's shoulder. Emma, perhaps we should— No, Emma said firmly, not taking her eyes from Sutton's face. I want to know. If money is the only thing that matters to you, Mr. Sutton, then name your price. The insurance adjuster, who had been silently observing the exchange, cleared his throat. Mr. Sutton, I should remind you that once the claim is paid, the insurance company has the right of salvage. If you choose to sell the animal rather than euthanize, a percentage of the sale would go back to the insurer. Sutton's expression hardened. That won't be an issue because I'm not selling him to a teenager with a savior complex. Emma felt her cheeks burn with indignation, but before she could respond, the clinic door opened again. A middle-aged couple entered looking concerned and slightly out of place. Emma, the woman called, spotting her daughter in the stall. We've been trying to call you. Mom? Dad, Emma replied, momentarily thrown by their sudden appearance. My phone died. I'm sorry. I should have called from the clinic's line. Her parents approached, eyeing the assembled group with confusion. Emma's father, Robert Sawyer, a tall man with calloused hands that spoke of years of manual labor, assessed the situation quickly. What's going on here? He asked, his protective instinct evident. Emma took a deep breath. This is Thunderstrike, the horse I told you about last night. He has a heart condition, but he can live a normal life with medication. She gestured to the others. This is Dr. Winters, Mr. Sutton, who owns Thunderstrike, and his insurance adjuster. Robert Sawyer, her father said, extending his hand to Sutton, who shook it briefly. My daughter was quite moved by what happened yesterday. She talked about nothing else when she called. Your daughter has been very attached to my horse, Sutton replied, a hint of impatience in his voice. Emma's mother, Margaret, a petite woman with the same determined set to her jaw that Emma had inherited, moved closer to her daughter. We came to bring you home, sweetheart. You've done more than enough. I can't leave him, Mom, Emma said quietly. Mr. Sutton is planning to euthanize him after the insurance pays out. Her parents exchanged a look, understanding dawning in their eyes. They knew their daughter, her deep empathy for animals, her inability to walk away from suffering, the stubborn streak that ran bone deep. "Mr. Sutton," Robert said carefully, "is there no alternative for the horse? If he's not suffering?" "It's a business decision, Mr. Sawyer," Sutton replied coolly. "Keeping a horse with this condition is expensive and impractical." "And if someone were willing to take on that expense?" Robert pressed, already sensing where this was heading. Emma looked at her father with sudden hope. She hadn't expected him to understand so quickly, let alone appear to be taking her side. Sutton sighed with evident frustration. "As I was explaining to your daughter, even after the insurance claim, Thunderstrike represents a significant asset. I can't simply give him away." "Nobody's asking for charity," Robert replied, his tone measured but firm. "My daughter asked you a fair question. What's your price?" The directness of the question seemed to catch Sutton off guard. He looked between Robert and Emma, clearly reassessing the situation. "Assuming the insurance claim is approved, which will compensate me for his lost performance value, I would still need to recoup his purchase price and basic value as a horse, $15,000 minimum." Emma's heart sank. It might as well have been $15 million for all her family could afford. Her father worked as a construction foreman, her mother as a school librarian. They lived comfortably but modestly, with Emma's college fund representing their major savings. But Robert didn't flinch at the number. "Would you be willing to consider terms, a down payment and monthly installments?" Sutton scoffed. "This isn't a used car lot, Mr. Sawyer." "No," Robert agreed. "It's a living creature that my daughter believes deserves a chance. I'm simply trying to find a solution that works for everyone." Emma watched her father with a mixture of gratitude and disbelief. She hadn't told him much during their brief phone conversation, just that a horse had collapsed and she was helping at the clinic, yet here he was advocating for her, for Thunderstrike, as if he understood exactly what this meant to her. Dr. Winters, who had been quietly observing, finally spoke. "Mr. Sutton, the insurance process will take several weeks at minimum. Thunderstrike needs to complete his initial treatment course here regardless. Perhaps this gives everyone time to consider options?" Sutton checked his watch impatiently. "I have another appointment. Thunderstrike can remain here until the insurance claim is processed. I'll cover his medical expenses until then. After that, decisions will need to be made." He turned to the Sawyers. "If you're serious about this, have a proposal ready when the time comes, but I won't hold my breath." With that, he nodded to the insurance adjuster and strode from the clinic, leaving a tense silence in his wake. Emma turned to her parents, tears threatening despite her best efforts. "I can't let them kill him, Dad. I just can't." Robert wrapped an arm around his daughter's shoulders. "I know, sweetheart. We'll figure something out." Thunderstrike nickered softly, nudging Emma's back with his nose as if offering his own reassurance. Despite everything, she found herself smiling through her tears. Somehow, she would find a way to save him. The drive home from the clinic was mostly silent. Emma sat in the back seat of her parents' aging sedan, her mind racing with possibilities and fears. When they finally pulled into the driveway of their modest two-story home on the outskirts of town, no one made a move to exit the car. $15,000, her father finally said, his hands still resting on the steering wheel. "That's a lot of money, Emma." "I know," she replied quietly. "I have about $2,000 saved from my summer jobs. It's not enough, but it's something." Her mother turned in her seat to face her. "Sweetheart, that's your college fund. You've been saving that money for years." "What good is college if I can't even stand up for what I believe in now?" Emma countered, her voice suddenly passionate. "Thunderstrike deserves a chance, Mom. He didn't ask for any of this. He just did what people trained him to do, and now they want to throw him away like he's nothing." Her parents exchanged a look that Emma couldn't quite interpret. Her father sighed deeply. "It's not just the purchase price, Emma. A horse like that, with medical needs no less, is expensive to maintain. Feed, shelter, veterinary care. We're talking hundreds of dollars every month for years." "I could get a job after school," Emma suggested immediately. "And I could cut back on—" "Emma," her mother interrupted gently, "we know how much this means to you. We just want you to understand what you're asking. This would affect all of us, our whole family." Emma felt tears threatening again and blinked them back. She knew her parents were right, knew they were being far more reasonable than many parents would be in this situation. Still, the thought of Thunderstrike being euthanized because of cold financial calculations made her physically ill. "I understand," she said finally, "and if you decide we can't do it, I'll accept that. But I have to try everything I can first. I promised him I wouldn't leave him alone." Her father nodded slowly, then finally turned off the car engine. "Let's sleep on it. We'll make some calls tomorrow, see what options might be available." The next morning, Emma woke early despite her exhaustion. She immediately began researching horse rescues and sanctuaries in the region, making a list of places that might be willing to take in a horse with special needs. By the time her parents came downstairs, she had filled several pages with notes and phone numbers. Over breakfast, her father outlined his own thoughts. "Even if we could manage a down payment, $15,000 is more than we can finance right now, with your brother's college tuition already stretching us thin." Emma nodded, pushing her cereal around in the bowl. Her older brother Mark was in his second year of engineering school, his scholarships covering only part of the considerable expense. "But," her father continued, "there might be other approaches. If Sutton's main concern is liability, maybe we could work out some kind of legal arrangement, a waiver or contract that protects him while giving Thunderstrike a chance at a new home." "Do you think he'd agree to that?" Emma asked, hope flickering. "It's worth exploring," her father replied. "I have a buddy who works in contract law. I'll give him a call." With her parents' blessing, Emma spent the day contacting every horse rescue within a 3-state radius. The responses were discouragingly similar. They were already at capacity, had limited funding for medical cases, or couldn't take on a horse with a chronic condition. By late afternoon, her spirits were flagging. "Don't give up yet," her mother encouraged, setting a mug of tea beside Emma's growing stack of notes. "This is just the beginning." Emma managed to smile. "I'm going back to the clinic tomorrow after school. Dr. Winters said I could visit Thunderstrike as long as I want." "That's good," her mother agreed. "Now why don't you take a break? You've been at this all day." But Emma couldn't rest. As soon as her mother left the room, she pulled out her laptop and began researching hypertrophic cardiomyopathy in horses, determined to understand exactly what Thunderstrike would need for long-term care. The next 2 weeks fell into a pattern. Emma attended school during the day, then headed straight to the clinic afterward, spending hours with Thunderstrike. The staff had grown accustomed to her presence, some even teaching her basic techniques for administering medication and checking vital signs. Thunderstrike continued to improve, becoming more animated and responsive with each visit. Dr. Winters observed their bond with professional interest, occasionally making notes as she watched Emma work with the stallion. "He's doing remarkably well," she told Emma one afternoon. "The medication is controlling his condition effectively." "So he could live a normal life?" Emma asked eagerly. "Not normal in the sense of unrestricted activity," Dr. Winters clarified. "He'll never be ridden hard or compete again, but a quiet life with gentle exercise? Absolutely." The confirmation strengthened Emma's resolve. That evening, after another day of disappointing calls to rescues and sanctuaries, she had a realization while scrolling through social media. What if we tell his story? She asked her parents over dinner. People love stories about animals overcoming the odds. If enough people hear about Thunderstrike, maybe someone will help. Or maybe we can raise some of the money ourselves. Her father looked thoughtful. That's not a bad idea. The local paper might be interested. I was thinking bigger, Emma admitted. Social media, maybe even reaching out to some animal welfare organizations. Thunderstrike was a star in the rodeo circuit. People already know who he is. Her mother seemed hesitant. That's putting yourself out there quite publicly, Emma. Are you sure you want that kind of attention? It's not about me, Emma insisted. It's about saving his life. The next day, with her parents' cautious approval, Emma created social media accounts dedicated to Thunderstrike's story. She posted the few photos she'd taken at the clinic, along with a heartfelt explanation of his condition and the looming threat of euthanasia. She included Dr. Winter's professional assessment that the horse could live a comfortable life with proper care. To her surprise, the response was immediate. Former rodeo attendees who had witnessed Thunderstrike's collapse shared their memories of the event. A few local news outlets reached out for interviews. By the end of the week, a small but passionate community had formed around saving the stallion. Emma had just finished her Friday visit to the clinic when her phone buzzed with a text from her father. Sutton called. Insurance moving faster than expected. Decision needed by end of next week. Her heart sank. Despite the growing attention to Thunderstrike's story, they were still nowhere near the financial goal. The promising leads her father had explored, legal waivers, partial donations from horse-loving acquaintances, hadn't materialized into anything concrete. As she sat beside Thunderstrike that evening, stroking his sleek neck and watching the steady rise and fall of his breathing, Emma felt the weight of time pressing down on her. "I'm not giving up," she whispered to him. "I promised you wouldn't be alone, and I meant it." Thunderstrike nudged her gently with his nose, his dark eyes somehow knowing. In that moment, despite all the obstacles still ahead, Emma felt a renewed sense of determination. There had to be a way to save him. She just needed to find it, and quickly. By Monday morning, Thunderstrike's story had spread further than Emma could have imagined. A local news station had picked up the story, interviewing her outside the clinic while Thunderstrike stood calmly beside her, looking remarkably dignified despite the circumstances. The segment aired Sunday evening, showing footage of the original collapse from a spectator's cell phone video, followed by Thunderstrike's remarkable recovery and the looming deadline for his fate. "We've raised almost $2,000, Emma told her parents over breakfast, scrolling through the online fundraising page she'd created. "It's amazing, but not nearly enough," her father finished, his expression sympathetic but realistic. "Emma, I think we need to prepare ourselves for the possibility that—" "I know," she interrupted, unable to bear hearing the words. "But we still have a few days. Something could happen." Her mother reached across the table to squeeze her hand. "You've done more for that horse than anyone could have expected. Whatever happens, you should be proud of that." Emma nodded, but pride was the last thing on her mind. All she could think about was Thunderstrike, his intelligent eyes, his gentle nudges, the trust he'd placed in her from that very first moment in the arena. At school, Emma found herself something of a minor celebrity. Classmates who had rarely spoken to her before now approached with questions about her horse and offers to contribute to the fundraiser. Her biology teacher, Mr. Peterson, even adjusted that day's lesson to discuss equine cardiovascular systems, tactfully using Thunderstrike's condition as a teaching opportunity. "Your dedication is admirable, Emma," he told her after class. "Not many people would fight this hard for an animal." "He's worth fighting for," she replied simply. By the time Emma arrived at the clinic that afternoon, her social media notifications were overwhelming. The story had been shared by several animal welfare organizations, bringing in small donations from across the country. A local feed store had offered to donate 3 months of specialized feed if Thunderstrike found a home. A retired veterinarian had volunteered to provide basic care at reduced rates. The support was heartwarming, but the total raised still hovered around $3,000, nowhere near what they needed. "You've created quite a stir," Dr. Winters remarked as Emma entered Thunderstrike's stall. "I've had reporters calling all day." "I'm sorry if it's causing problems," Emma apologized, immediately concerned. "Not at all," the veterinarian assured her. "If anything, it's bringing attention to an important issue in the performance horse world. Too many animals are discarded when they can no longer compete." Emma nodded, running her hand along Thunderstrike's gleaming coat. He looked stronger every day, his medication regimen stabilizing his condition effectively. It seemed particularly cruel that his life might end just as he was finding a new equilibrium. "Has Mr. Sutton been in contact?" she asked hesitantly. Dr. Winters' expression turned guarded. "He called this morning. The insurance company has approved the claim. They're processing payment now." Emma's heart sank. "So we're really down to just days." "I'm afraid so. He mentioned bringing his own veterinarian by tomorrow to conduct a final assessment." "His own vet? Why? Doesn't he trust your diagnosis?" Dr. Winters sighed. "It's standard procedure for an insurance payout of this size. The company requires confirmation from multiple professionals." Emma spent the rest of her visit in quiet contemplation, speaking softly to Thunderstrike and trying to project a calm she didn't feel. When she finally left the clinic, the weight of impending loss sat heavy on her shoulders. At home, Emma found her parents in deep conversation with an unexpected visitor, her grandfather, William Sawyer, who had driven 3 hours from his small ranch in the next county. At 72, he was still spry and sharp-eyed, though his hands bore the gnarled evidence of decades working with horses. "There's my girl," he said warmly as Emma entered. "Heard you've been making quite a name for yourself." "Grandpa," she embraced him, surprised but pleased. "What are you doing here?" "Your mother called, told me about this horse of yours. Thought I might be able to offer some perspective." They spent dinner discussing Thunderstrike's situation in detail. Grandfather William listened intently, asking occasional questions about the horse's temperament and specific medical needs. "Hypertrophic cardiomyopathy," he mused. "Had a mare with that condition years ago. Lived to be 23 with the right care. Never could work her hard, but she had a good life." "That's what I've been trying to tell everyone," Emma said eagerly. "Thunderstrike doesn't need to perform to have value." "No horse does," her grandfather agreed firmly. "But changing the mind of a man like Sutton, that's a different challenge altogether. Men who see animals as investments rarely change their thinking." After dinner, William asked to see what Emma had done online. He scrolled through the social media pages and fundraiser with interest, occasionally nodding or making thoughtful sounds. "You've done good work here, Emma," he said finally. "Got people talking, got them caring. That's no small thing." "But it's not enough," she replied, the frustration finally breaking through. "We're still thousands short, and time's running out." William patted her hand with his weathered one. "Never count your losses before the race is run, girl. I've got some thoughts." The next morning, Emma's alarm went off at 5:30 a.m. Bleary-eyed, she dressed quickly and found her grandfather already awake, sipping coffee at the kitchen table. "Ready?" he asked simply. She nodded, grabbing a granola bar for the road. Her parents had agreed, reluctantly, to let her miss the first few hours of school to accompany her grandfather to what he mysteriously described as an important meeting. The drive took them to the outskirts of a neighboring town, where an impressive ranch sprawled across hundreds of acres. A tasteful sign marked the entrance: Clearwater Equestrian Center. What is this place? Emma asked, taking in the immaculate grounds and state-of-the-art facilities. Rehabilitation and retirement facility for high-performance horses, William explained as they parked, run by an old friend of mine. They were met at the main building by a tall woman in her 60s, with silver-streaked hair pulled back in a practical ponytail and the confident posture of someone comfortable in her own domain. "William Sawyer," she greeted him with a warm handshake. "It's been too long." "Eleanor," he replied with a nod. "Appreciate you seeing us on short notice. This is my granddaughter, Emma." "Ms. Montgomery," Emma said, extending her hand. "Eleanor, please," the woman corrected with a smile. "Your grandfather tells me you've taken on quite a challenge." For the next hour, they toured the facility, while Emma explained Thunderstrike's situation in detail. Eleanor listened attentively, occasionally asking clarifying questions about his condition and temperament. The center was impressive: spacious stalls, gentle exercise areas, and a full medical facility staffed by specialized veterinarians. "We work primarily with racehorses and Olympic-level competition horses," Eleanor explained as they walked. "Many owners prefer to retire their valuable animals here rather than sell them, both for sentimental reasons and to maintain control of prestigious bloodlines." "It's amazing," Emma said sincerely, "but I'm not sure why we're here. There's no way we could afford this kind of care for Thunderstrike." Eleanor and William exchanged a look that Emma couldn't quite interpret. "Let's discuss that over coffee," Eleanor suggested, leading them to a comfortable office overlooking the training grounds. Once they were seated with steaming mugs, Eleanor leaned forward. "Your grandfather and I go back 40 years, Emma. He helped me establish this place when everyone said a woman couldn't run a facility like this, so when he calls asking for a favor, I listen." Emma set her coffee mug down carefully, her heart beginning to race with cautious hope. "What kind of favor?" Eleanor smiled, the lines around her eyes crinkling. "William has told me about your dedication to this horse, how you've spent every available hour at the clinic, how you've mobilized support, how you speak to him. That kind of connection isn't common, especially with an animal you've known for such a short time." "Thunderstrike and I understood each other from the beginning," Emma said simply, unsure where this was leading. Eleanor nodded thoughtfully. "At Clearwater, we primarily serve clients who can afford our services, wealthy owners who want the best for their retired champions. But we also maintain what we call our legacy program, which provides space for a limited number of special cases each year." William's weathered face broke into a small smile, clearly knowing where Eleanor was heading. "Special cases?" Emma asked, hardly daring to hope. "Horses with extraordinary circumstances or connections," Eleanor explained. "Sometimes it's an animal with historical significance, sometimes it's one with remarkable abilities or genetics worth preserving, and sometimes—" She leaned forward, her gaze intense. "It's about the human-animal bond that transcends typical ownership." Emma felt her throat tighten with emotion. "Are you saying you might consider Thunderstrike for this program?" "I'm saying I'd like to meet him," Eleanor replied carefully. "William has vouched for you, which carries significant weight, but I need to assess Thunderstrike myself, understand his temperament and needs. Our resources are limited, even for a facility of this size." "Of course," Emma agreed quickly. "When could you come? The deadline is approaching fast." "This afternoon, if that works for the clinic," Eleanor said, glancing at her watch. "I'd like to review his medical records as well." William reached for his phone. "I'll call Dr. Winters right now. Make sure she's available." As her grandfather stepped outside to make the call, Emma turned to Eleanor with gratitude overwhelming her. "I don't know how to thank you for even considering this." Eleanor's expression softened. "No thanks necessary yet. And you should understand what this would mean, Emma. If, and it's still an if, Thunderstrike is accepted into our program, you wouldn't own him. Clearwater would. You could visit, certainly, but his care and management would be in our hands. Emma nodded, having already considered this reality. I just want him to have a chance at life, to not be thrown away because he can't perform anymore. That's a mature perspective, Eleanor observed. Many people in your position would be focused on making the horse their own. Don't get me wrong, Emma admitted with a small smile. Part of me would love to have Thunderstrike as my own, but that's not realistic, and it's not what's best for him. He needs specialized care that I can't provide. William returned, tucking his phone back into his pocket. Dr. Winters will expect us at 2. Sutton's veterinarian is scheduled for this morning, so she suggested we come after they've finished. Emma's stomach tightened at the reminder of Sutton's continued control over Thunderstrike's fate. What if Sutton refuses to consider Clearwater as an option? He seemed pretty set on euthanasia once the insurance paid out. Eleanor's expression turned shrewd. Let me worry about Mr. Sutton. I've dealt with his type before. The drive to the clinic felt both too long and too short. Emma's mind raced with possibilities and fears. What if Thunderstrike was having a bad day? What if Eleanor didn't see in him what Emma did? What if Sutton had already made arrangements that couldn't be undone? When they arrived, Emma was relieved to see Dr. Winters waiting for them at the entrance, her expression cautiously optimistic. Perfect timing, she greeted them. Mr. Sutton and his veterinarian just left about 30 minutes ago. How did the examination go? Emma asked anxiously as they followed Dr. Winters inside. Exactly as expected. Dr. Michaels confirmed our diagnosis and prognosis. Thunderstrike's condition is serious but manageable with proper care and activity restrictions. Eleanor stepped forward, extending her hand. Eleanor Montgomery, Clearwater Equestrian Center. Thank you for accommodating us on such short notice. Recognition flashed in Dr. Winters' eyes. The Clearwater Center, I've referred clients to you before. Your facility is exceptional. We try to provide the best care possible, Eleanor acknowledged. William has told me about Thunderstrike's situation, and I'd like to evaluate him for our legacy program. Hope flickered across Dr. Winters' face. That would be remarkable. His medical records are ready for your review, and of course, you can examine him as thoroughly as needed. As they approached Thunderstrike's stall, Emma felt a flutter of nerves. The stallion was standing quietly, his coat gleaming from a recent grooming. At the sound of Emma's voice, his head lifted, ears pricking forward in recognition. "Hey, big guy," she called softly, approaching the stall door. "I brought some friends to meet you." Thunderstrike nickered in response, moving forward to greet her with his customary gentle nudge. Emma stroked his forehead, murmuring reassurances as she had done countless times over the past weeks. Eleanor watched their interaction carefully, her experienced eyes missing nothing. After a moment, she stepped closer, allowing Thunderstrike to become aware of her presence. "May I?" she asked Emma, gesturing toward the stall. Emma nodded, stepping aside slightly while maintaining contact with Thunderstrike. Eleanor entered with the quiet confidence of someone who had spent a lifetime around horses. She didn't immediately reach for the stallion, but stood quietly, allowing him to assess her. Thunderstrike regarded the newcomer with intelligent curiosity, his ears flicking back and forth as he took in her scent and posture. After a moment, he extended his nose toward her, nostrils flaring slightly. Eleanor raised her hand slowly, allowing him to investigate before gently touching his neck. "Hello, handsome," she said quietly. "You've been through quite an ordeal, haven't you?" For the next half hour, Eleanor conducted a thorough evaluation. She observed Thunderstrike's movements, tested his responsiveness to basic commands, and reviewed his medical records with Dr. Winters. Emma watched anxiously, trying to interpret Eleanor's neutral expression. Finally, Eleanor stepped out of the stall, her face giving nothing away. "He's a remarkable animal," she said. Intelligent, responsive, and despite everything he's been through, still trusting. Does that mean... Emma couldn't finish the question, afraid to jinx the possibility hanging in the air. Eleanor glanced at William, who nodded encouragingly. I believe Thunderstrike would be an excellent candidate for our legacy program. His story has educational value for our work, and his temperament is suitable for our environment. Emma's knees nearly buckled with relief. Really? You'll take him? If we can reach an agreement with Mr. Sutton, Eleanor cautioned. That's the next hurdle, and potentially the most challenging. Dr. Winters, who had been quietly observing, spoke up. Mr. Sutton is scheduled to come by tomorrow morning at 10 to make final arrangements. Would you be available to meet with him then? Eleanor nodded decisively. I'll be here. William, will you join us as well? Wouldn't miss it, he replied with a determined gleam in his eye. Emma looked between them, suddenly realizing there was a plan forming that she wasn't fully privy to. What are you going to say to him? Sutton doesn't strike me as the sentimental type who'll be moved by Thunderstrike's story. We'll appeal to what does move him, Eleanor said simply. Now, let me make a few calls to prepare for tomorrow. As Eleanor stepped away to use her phone, Emma turned to her grandfather. What did she mean by that? What moves someone like Sutton? William's weathered face creased into a knowing smile. Two things, Emma. Money and reputation. Eleanor understands both better than most. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur of anticipation and planning. Eleanor made several calls, speaking in the clipped professional tone of someone accustomed to negotiation. William conferred quietly with Dr. Winters about Thunderstrike's medication and care requirements. Emma spent every moment she could with the stallion, whispering promises she desperately hoped she could keep. By the time they left the clinic, the sun was setting, casting long shadows across the parking lot. Emma felt simultaneously exhausted and wired with nervous energy. Try to get some sleep tonight, Eleanor advised as they prepared to part ways. Tomorrow will be important, and we need to present a united professional front. Can I be there? Emma asked. When you meet with Sutton? Eleanor and William exchanged glances before her grandfather answered. Yes, but you'll need to follow our lead. This is delicate territory. Emma nodded solemnly. I understand. I just want to be there for Thunderstrike. As they drove home in the gathering darkness, Emma stared out the window, replaying the day's events. For the first time since Thunderstrike's collapse, she felt a genuine flicker of hope, not just wishful thinking, but real possibility. Thank you, Grandpa, she said quietly, for understanding, for helping. William reached across to squeeze her hand briefly. Some connections are worth fighting for, Emma. You recognize that instinctively. All I did was make a phone call. But they both knew it was more than that. He had recognized the depth of Emma's commitment and responded not with dismissal or platitudes, but with practical action. In doing so, he had given Thunderstrike a chance that financial limitations had nearly taken away. Emma barely slept that night. Her mind kept cycling through possible outcomes of the meeting with Sutton, imagining both best and worst-case scenarios. By the time her alarm sounded at 6 the next morning, she had already been staring at the ceiling for an hour, mentally rehearsing what she might say if given the opportunity. Her parents insisted she eat breakfast, though her stomach was too knotted with anxiety to accommodate much more than a few bites of toast. Her father had arranged to go into work late so he could join them at the clinic, adding another layer of support to their cause. Remember, her mother said as they prepared to leave, whatever happens today, you've already done something remarkable. You've shown Thunderstrike more love and compassion than most animals ever experience. Emma nodded, unable to formulate a response past the lump in her throat. The possibility of failure, of saying goodbye to Thunderstrike forever, was too painful to contemplate. They arrived at the clinic 45 minutes early. Eleanor and William were already there, engaged in quiet conversation with Dr. Winters. Eleanor had transformed from the casual ranch manager of yesterday into an imposing businesswoman dressed in a tailored suit that somehow didn't diminish her inherent equestrian authority. "Good morning, Emma," she greeted with a reassuring smile. "I hope you got some rest." "Not really," Emma admitted. "I'm too nervous." "Understandable. But I want you to know we're well prepared. I've done my homework on Mr. Sutton and his operations." William nodded in agreement. "Eleanor's been making calls half the night from what I can tell." Dr. Winters led them to a private conference room adjacent to her office. "Sutton confirmed he'll be here at 10. I've arranged for Thunderstrike to be visible through the window there." She indicated a large window overlooking one of the exercise paddocks. "Should we need to reference him during discussions?" Emma moved to the window, watching as a clinic assistant led Thunderstrike into the paddock. The stallion moved with growing confidence, his steps measured but steady. In the morning light, his black coat gleamed like polished onyx, betraying nothing of the medical crisis he had endured. "He looks so much better," she remarked, emotion making her voice unsteady. "He's responded exceptionally well to treatment," Dr. Winters confirmed. "His latest tests show significant improvement in cardiac function, though he'll always require medication and monitoring." They spent the next half hour reviewing their strategy. Eleanor would lead the conversation, with William providing support based on his decades in the horse business. Emma's role was primarily to demonstrate the bond she'd formed with Thunderstrike, though Eleanor cautioned her to speak only when directly addressed. "Sutton respects authority and business acumen," Eleanor explained. "Emotional appeals will likely fall flat with him. Let me handle the negotiations." At precisely 10 o'clock, the clinic's receptionist announced Blake Sutton's arrival. Emma's heart rate accelerated as the door opened and Sutton strode in, dressed in an expensive suit that seemed at odds with the setting. He faltered momentarily at the sight of the assembled group, clearly having expected a simpler meeting. "Mr. Sutton," Dr. Winters greeted him professionally. "Thank you for coming. We have some additional parties interested in discussing Thunderstrike's situation." Sutton's expression tightened. "I wasn't aware this would be a committee meeting. My business is straightforward. The insurance has processed the claim, and I'm here to make final arrangements for the horse." "Before those arrangements are finalized," Eleanor interjected smoothly, stepping forward with an extended hand, "I'd like to introduce myself, Eleanor Montgomery, Director of Clearwater Equestrian Center." Recognition flickered in Sutton's eyes as he shook her hand. "Montgomery. I know the name. Your facility handles retirement for some of the top racing stables in the country." "Among others," Eleanor confirmed. "We've been following Thunderstrike's situation with interest." Sutton's gaze swept the room, lingering briefly on Emma before returning to Eleanor. "With all due respect, Ms. Montgomery, I don't see what interest Clearwater would have in a rodeo horse with a career-ending condition." "Perhaps we should all sit down," Eleanor suggested, gesturing to the conference table. "I believe we may have a proposition that would benefit everyone involved." Something in her tone, confident but not challenging, seemed to intrigue Sutton enough that he complied, taking a seat at the head of the table. The others arranged themselves around him, with Eleanor directly to his right and Emma at the far end, trying to appear calmer than she felt. "I'll be direct, Mr. Sutton," Eleanor began once everyone was seated. "Clearwater would like to acquire Thunderstrike for our legacy program. We believe his story and his potential for education make him a valuable addition to our facility." Sutton's eyebrows rose. "Legacy program?" "A specialized initiative that preserves horses with unique stories or attributes," Eleanor explained. "These animals become ambassadors for equine health and welfare education." They receive lifetime care at our facility while serving as teaching cases for veterinary students, equine therapists, and others in the field. An interesting concept, Sutton acknowledged, but as I've explained to the Sawyer family, Thunderstrike represents a significant investment. Even with the insurance payout for his performance value, there's still his basic worth to consider. Eleanor nodded, as if this were exactly the response she'd anticipated. Clearwater understands the economics involved. We're prepared to offer fair compensation for Thunderstrike, taking into account both his current market value and the liability considerations of his condition. She slid a folder across the table. This is our formal offer, including the terms of acquisition and the commitments we would make regarding his care and utilization. Sutton opened the folder, his expression carefully neutral as he reviewed the contents. Emma strained to see what was inside, but couldn't make out the details from her position. "This is more generous than I expected," Sutton admitted after a moment. "We value what Thunderstrike can contribute to our program," Eleanor replied. "But there's another aspect I think might interest you, Mr. Sutton." She produced a second folder. This outlines the public relations benefits of partnering with Clearwater. As Thunderstrike's former owner, you would be credited as a founding contributor to our cardiac research initiative. Your name would appear on educational materials, and we would acknowledge your contribution at our annual gala, which is attended by some of the most influential figures in the equestrian world. Emma watched as Sutton's expression shifted subtly. Eleanor had correctly identified what motivated him, not just money, but recognition and status among his peers. "The alternative," Eleanor continued smoothly when Sutton didn't immediately respond, "is less beneficial from a public relations standpoint. The story of Thunderstrike's collapse has already gained significant media attention, largely due to Emma's advocacy." She nodded toward Emma. "Euthanizing a horse that medical experts agree could live a comfortable life might generate unfavorable coverage." It wasn't a threat exactly, but the implication was clear. Sutton glanced toward the window where Thunderstrike could be seen, walking calmly around the paddock, showing little outward sign of his condition. "You're suggesting I would face public backlash," Sutton said, a hint of defensiveness entering his tone. "I'm merely pointing out that there are multiple factors to consider beyond the immediate economics," Eleanor replied diplomatically. "Our offer provides financial compensation while also creating positive associations for your brand in the equestrian community." William, who had been silent until now, leaned forward. "Blake, I've been in horses all my life. What Eleanor's offering isn't just fair, it's an opportunity. Thunderstrike's story doesn't have to end with his collapse. It can become something that reflects well on everyone involved, including you." Sutton tapped his fingers thoughtfully on the folder, his gaze returning to Thunderstrike in the paddock. For a long moment no one spoke. "And the girl?" he finally asked, nodding toward Emma. "What's her role in all this?" Eleanor smiled. "Emma has demonstrated an exceptional ability to connect with Thunderstrike. We would welcome her involvement as a volunteer at Clearwater, where she could continue to work with him under professional supervision. Her bond with him would be an asset to our program." Emma held her breath, hardly daring to hope as Sutton considered the proposal. The seconds stretched into what felt like hours before he finally closed the folder and looked up. "I need to consult with my business manager and attorney," he said, "but your offer has merit. I'll need 24 hours to provide a final answer." The 24 hours that followed were the longest of Emma's life. She attended school the next day only because her parents insisted, but she couldn't focus on anything her teacher said. Her phone remained clutched in her hand beneath her desk, set to vibrate in case anyone from the clinic called with news. By the time the final bell rang, she still hadn't heard anything. She rushed to the clinic directly from school, arriving breathless and anxious. Dr. Winters greeted her with a neutral expression that revealed nothing. "Any word?" Emma asked immediately. "Not yet," Dr. Winters replied. "Eleanor called about an hour ago. She's been in touch with Sutton's attorney but hasn't received a final answer." Emma tried to hide her disappointment as she made her way to Thunderstrike's stall. The stallion greeted her with his usual gentle nudge, seemingly unaware that his fate hung in the balance. She stroked his neck, finding comfort in his steady presence. "I wish I could explain what's happening," she told him softly. "I wish you didn't have to wait for someone else to decide your worth." Time crawled by as Emma sat with Thunderstrike, talking to him quietly and helping the staff with his evening medications. When her phone finally rang shortly after 6, she almost dropped it in her haste to answer. "Emma?" Her grandfather's voice came through, impossible to read. "Eleanor just heard from Sutton's attorney. Can you put Dr. Winters on speaker?" With trembling fingers, Emma found Dr. Winters and activated the speakerphone. "We're both here, Grandpa. What did they say?" There was a moment of silence that seemed to stretch into eternity. Then, "He's accepted the offer. Thunderstrike is going to Clearwater." The words took a moment to register. When they did, Emma's knees gave way, and she sank to the clinic floor, tears of relief streaming down her face. Dr. Winters placed a steadying hand on her shoulder, her own eyes suspiciously bright. "Are you certain?" Dr. Winters asked. "No additional conditions or complications?" "The agreement is being finalized as we speak," William confirmed. "Eleanor says there were a few minor adjustments to the terms, but nothing that changes the fundamental outcome. Thunderstrike will be transferred to Clearwater's care as soon as he's medically cleared for transport." Emma couldn't speak, overcome with emotion. She reached through the stall bars to touch Thunderstrike, who had moved closer as if sensing her distress. Dr. Winters took the phone to discuss logistical details, allowing Emma a moment to process the news. "We did it," she finally whispered to Thunderstrike. "You're going to be okay." The following week was a whirlwind of preparations. Dr. Winters worked closely with Clearwater's veterinary team to ensure a smooth transition of Thunderstrike's medical care. Emma divided her time between school, the clinic, and learning about Clearwater's volunteer program, which would allow her to visit Thunderstrike regularly once he was settled. Sutton himself never returned to the clinic, handling all remaining details through his attorney. Emma was secretly relieved. Despite the positive outcome, she couldn't quite forgive him for having so casually contemplated ending Thunderstrike's life. On the day of the transfer, a small crowd gathered at the clinic to see Thunderstrike off. The local news station that had covered his story sent a reporter to document his journey to a second chance, as they called it. Emma's social media campaign had raised awareness not just about Thunderstrike, but about the broader issue of what happened to performance horses when they could no longer compete. Eleanor arrived with Clearwater's specialized transport, a state-of-the-art trailer designed for horses with medical needs. She greeted Emma with a warm hug. "Ready for the big day?" she asked. Emma nodded, emotions too complex for words. She was overjoyed that Thunderstrike had been saved, but the reality of saying goodbye, even temporarily, was harder than she'd expected. Leading Thunderstrike to the transport was a solemn moment. The stallion followed Emma trustingly, his steps steady and confident as they made their way through the small crowd. When they reached the trailer, Emma turned to face him, cradling his magnificent head in her hands. "This isn't goodbye," she promised softly. "It's just a new chapter. I'll come see you at Clearwater as often as I can." Thunderstrike's dark eyes seemed to hold understanding beyond words. He lowered his head slightly, resting his forehead against hers in a gesture that brought tears to her eyes. For a brief moment they stood connected in perfect stillness, an image that the news photographer captured and that would later become the symbol of their story. With a final pat to his neck, Emma handed Thunderstrike's lead to Eleanor. "Take good care of him," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "We will," Eleanor promised. "And remember, you're part of his care team now. Your understanding of him, your connection, that's invaluable." As Thunderstrike was carefully loaded into the transport, Emma felt her grandfather's reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You've done something extraordinary here, Emma. Something most adults wouldn't have had the courage or persistence to do." "I couldn't have done it without all of you," she replied, including her parents and Dr. Winters in her grateful glance. "You inspired us," her father said simply. "Your dedication made it impossible not to help." As the transport pulled away, Emma felt not the sharp pain of loss she had feared, but a quieter, more peaceful sensation, the satisfaction of knowing she had fought for what was right and won. Thunderstrike wasn't leaving her life. He was moving to a place where he could thrive, where his story could help others. 3 months later, Emma stood in Clearwater's main paddock, watching as Thunderstrike trotted gracefully around the perimeter. His coat gleamed in the autumn sunlight, his movements fluid and strong despite the limitations of his condition. The medication regimen had been refined, allowing him to enjoy moderate exercise without strain on his heart. Eleanor joined her at the fence, clipboard in hand. "His latest tests are excellent. The new medication combination is working beautifully." "He looks so happy," Emma observed, smiling as Thunderstrike playfully tossed his head. "He is, and he's making quite an impact already. We had a group of veterinary students here last week studying cardiac conditions in performance horses. His case is providing valuable insights that could help prevent similar situations in the future." Emma felt a surge of pride. So his story really is helping others. "In more ways than one," Eleanor confirmed. "The publicity around his case has drawn attention to our legacy program. We've received several new applications and increased funding for our research initiatives." Thunderstrike, noticing Emma at the fence, trotted over to greet her with his customary gentle nudge. She stroked his forehead, marveling at how far they had come from that dramatic day in the rodeo arena. "You know," Eleanor said thoughtfully, "we're developing an educational outreach program for schools, teaching children about responsible horse care and the ethical treatment of performance animals. We could use a youth ambassador who speaks from personal experience." Emma looked up in surprise. "Are you offering me a job?" "More like an opportunity," Eleanor clarified with a smile. "To share Thunderstrike's story, and yours, with others who might be inspired to make a difference." As if understanding the conversation, Thunderstrike nickered softly, nudging Emma again. She laughed, wrapping her arms around his powerful neck in a gesture that had become so natural between them. In that moment, standing in the golden afternoon light with Thunderstrike's heartbeat strong and steady beneath her touch, Emma understood that what had begun as an impulsive act of compassion had transformed into something far greater. A single decision, to vault over that fence and approach a fallen horse, had not only saved Thunderstrike's life, but had changed her own in ways she was only beginning to comprehend. Some might call it destiny that she had been in those stands that day, that she had recognized what others had missed, that she had refused to give up when obstacles seemed insurmountable. Emma simply knew that when the moment came to stand up for what was right, she had found the courage to do so, and in that courage, discovered the person she was meant to become.